Welcome back to the Product House, where product people get real. So today's episode, we have someone very special and personal joining us.
We've both had the privilege of working with Justin, and everything you're about to hear in our conversation, that's exactly how he shows up every day.
Justin Homer is the founder for Be Luminous, which is a really incredible business that focusing on helping organizations navigating complex change through collaboration, design, and play.
So before Be Luminous, Justin spent decades building and leading impactful work across organizations like Ernst & Young, The Difference, and PwC, helping teams not just solve problems, but rethinking how they approach them entirely. We really hope you enjoyed it because we had a lot of fun, of course, recording it and got a lot away from it as well.
Elegance is the minimalist amount of stuff you need to do to solve the problem. When I say good work, I mean you're always working at your edge. You're actually pushing yourself and the people you're working with and for to go that one step further, to really find the last 5%. Without messiness or sloppiness, there is no creative process, right? If anyone tells you there is, it's not. It's just a process.
Let's just kick in with some of the fun rapid fire questions to get to know
All
a
right.
little bit more about who is
Let's
Justin.
go.
Let's
Who
go.
is Justin?
All right, that's actually number one question. Who is Justin beyond the Be Luminous?
So I am a few things. I'm a father of two teenage daughters, actually one teenage daughter, one 20-year-old daughter, and the partner of a awesome artist called Carolyn.
Second question, what are you currently building, shaping, or leading right now?
The biggest thing I'm shaping and building is Be Luminous, and really with Maureen, Timothy, Lawrence, and Dom, really trying to create something that both has an impact on our clients, but also just we're kind of really in that space between ambition and trying to stretch our ambition and commerciality, just get the work done right and be relevant. That's almost a constant to and fro in my mind between those two things.
So now, if we want to know what is a recent non-work related things either you are learning or you are geeking out about.
There's a few things, right? So I'm ridiculous. I've got ADHD. I get completely obsessed by stuff. So my recent history of being obsessed by stuff would be, in no particular order, some current favorites are oldies but goodies still. Volcanoes, I love them. I'm obsessed by them. I want to go. I've seen a few and I've been up a few, but I'm really interested with plate tectonics and how that shapes the world in a really weirdly kind of like, hey, we all think we're smart, but actually we have no clue what's going on there. And I love the drama of it all and just kind of the smallness of the human being in such a kind of really complex system. And that's that. I'm geeking out about oil prices and understanding a lot about oil and carbon structures of oil. So the fact that in Venezuela it's a very different kind of oil in terms of density to, let's say, USA, and how different kinds of oil equal different kinds of oil products. So kind of that's the geopolitical importance of it all. Like that stuff's like, I'm like, whoa, cool.
All right, next rapid fire question is, what is a mantra or quote you just keep coming back to?
So especially at the moment in the work I'm doing, but also kind of life, I think there's a quote that I heard a few years ago from a guy called Matt Taylor, who's kind of one of my mentors. And I think he stole the quote as well, but it's simple. It's basically like the system is perfectly designed to ship the outcomes. And so I love it because it just makes me always think that actually, when you think someone's being a dickhead or you don't understand why something's happening, and we tend to blame the individual, but actually if you look at the system around the individual or the moment, actually everything's been designed perfectly for that to happen. And so it kind of talks to me about intentionality, and absolutely the abstract of that is when you kind of fault the individual, but not fault the system, and understand actually what are the things that are driving the behavior that are in that person's control or not in that control.
We really love this quote. I feel like this aligns with the whole mantra of our podcast really, really well. It's actually about observing the system instead of individual in the system.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because we're a product management podcast, but inevitably the conversation goes to what is the system that enables the success of a product or the desire or the demand of something. It's an awesome mantra. Thank you for sharing with us.
Well, last one, I'm very curious. What's your favorite app right now?
I got three. So, and they kind of talk to kind of how I use my phone as well, right? So the first one is a new one for me. I think it's been around for a bit, but too good to go. So that's just this cool app, which basically end of the day, basically shops offer the end of their kind of the bread that's going to be thrown out, and you just get a bag for $10, and it's got like $30 worth of goodies in it. So it's a really good thing for the circular economy and just for food waste, which is awful. And it's like a really awesome thing because it's just surprise and delight, right? Who doesn't want a bag for $10 to go, yeah, what have I got in here? So that's my kind of like, it's fun. I just like surprise. Yeah, it's cool. It's different. It allows me to go, find a shop in my neighborhood and just get some stuff I didn't know that I needed. But I kind of love that idea. The second one is kind of what I'm geeking out from, which is Substack. I think Substack is like literally I know everyone's kind of probably there already, but I was late to the party to an extent. And I think it's a treasure trove of just lots of rabbit holes, but just like some really, really good thoughts and opinions. And like, if you want to learn, I kind of find that there's just so much I can learn there. And so that's just so useful for me on my phone. And when I'm on the tram, I've got about 4 or 5 people I just like adore and I follow and I try and just, I go into these webs of who they're following and it's just, oof.
Who is your first like a follower?
The first person I followed,
Yeah.
there's the Katrini project, which is basically that the guys who put out that piece recently around kind of a futuristic view of AI and what like 2030 could look like. And it's quite dystopic and quite extreme, but it's a really interesting bit of writing which kind of uses almost the idea of creating an extreme use case of what a thing could be to actually allow people to have a much broader discussion around what actually we want to actually happen intentionally. Then there's like kind of a couple of others. So Michael Berry that I really like. So he's kind of the Big Short guy, and he's got some amazing writing around the markets and what's going on. And then I just like geek out. I've got a few environment. I've got a plug for another Australian guy that I follow, and I think it's called In the News. So I got actually before Substack, for some reason I got onto his newsletter, and every week they send a newsletter, and the newsletter is basically news articles from the week, and it's all good news. So it'd be stuff like, malaria has gone down by this much, kind of cancer rates of that, kind of this inclusion, and just really like you read it and you go, oh my God, there is progress in the world. And I think that we can get really like kind of set in our ways that kind of the world's pretty dark and all these bad things are happening and we're going backwards. But actually at the same time, there's some just incredible things that, we as a human society have done to change the outcomes for so many people. And it's just like it's just my kind of like, when the world is dark, I just go there and just let rip. It's just one article every week. And I'm just like, I just feel better for it. I'll get you the name of it because it is important.
That is amazing.
Sorry, just say everyone, like it's called Fix the News.
Fix the news.
It's gorgeous. It's just like, it fills me, if that makes any sense. And actually, interestingly, like you said, I know this is rapid fire, but like at the moment, like all my own curation of whether it's apps and play, and I'll get to my last app in a second, or what I'm reading, I'm finding that I'm really trying to balance because I feel the weight sometimes of the stuff I read is like really plays on me. So I'm really, really being conscious of the stuff which fills me and the stuff that usually depletes me a little bit, but it doesn't mean I shouldn't read it and try and understand it because I think it's materially important. But I just really being conscious about what are those things. That there's a podcast that I really like as well, which is exactly like that. I'm just like, it's Freud's granddaughter, and she basically has a couch in New York. She's a fashion designer, and it's just talking about clothes and fashion to people, famous people, and it's just the most intimate thing like you can listen to. It's just another joy.
Wow, you definitely have a spectrum of like interesting thing to read and stuff as well. Yeah,
and my
love
last
it.
one, by the way, is then if that's like if that was like kind of geeky, like something interesting and fun, and then kind of like reading and getting knowledge, Viking Rising, which is just a straight on game. Yeah, like kind of Age of Empires-esque, kind of build your village, join a tribe, get into a kingdom. Like I'm all in. So I'm always, at any one time I allow myself to have one game I'm playing. And I will get obsessed and I go, and then at some point I kind of predictably know how all the gamification's working. And then I just go, oh shit, I'm over, I'm done, right? I like it.
Thank you for sharing that. And we'll definitely put the links to your apps and share it with our listeners as well. Thank you for making the time to chat with us. You're in the business of collaboration design. Would you be able to share your journey into the industry and then what motivated you to kind of craft that into a business?
Yeah, so I don't think it's an ordinary. It's a long and not maybe too windy story to go. Try and tell it all, but the short was when I finished university, I did European social policy, which is not much use if you live in Australia, that's for sure. But when I finished uni, I actually went and worked with the homeless. That was my first job. I traveled
Wow.
for a couple of years, then worked as a key worker, helping people with medical illnesses, usually kind of addiction or mental health, helping them through recovery medically, and then
Mm.
helping them on their journey to housing. And it like taught me everything, right? It's the biggest fucking learning I've ever had. But I was doing that, not getting paid a lot, and my mate was working for Ernst and Young at the time, and he kept ringing me up going, I think you might, yeah. And I'm not that guy. I was not really into the commercial world, but he said, you're weird kind of thing. You've got these interesting thoughts. You're quite playful. We've got this really creative process. It's kind of the antigen to kind of it's creativity meets business, but it's really about using creativity to allow business to solve problems that it's really wrestling with, and using different kind of patterns and different kind of methodologies, and also just different perspectives to do it. So I kind of one day, r- probably 2 years in, went, okay, I'll come and have a look at this. And I kind of went to this place, and it looked like a Montessori kind of school for adults. It was literally full of books and toys and whiteboards everywhere. And I'm old, so this is before there were kind of like laptops and things like that. It was like, yeah, some computers and kind of cameras with the old kind of the 3.5 inch kind of things put into some Soviet Sony Mavicas, I think they were called. And I went into this place and I was like, why would I be in this space, and what kind of stuff can we do? And basically it started a journey from 1997 that's got me to where I am today, where I've kind of learned how to use deep kind of collaborative methods to help people solve complex problems. And really the art of that and the passion I have for that I still draw from today is that it's not about being the smartest person in the room, but it's basically how do you create the set of conditions that allow someone to actually understand something differently so they can
Mm.
solve it in a different way. Because actually, if they understand it in the way they've always understand it, why would you need to even have the session? Because they could just go and solve the problem.
Yes.
And it allow you to create psychological safety for people, to rewire how they connect with each other, to know that actually they're part of a system. It's not like a function of just the part. And that was in the 90s. I started getting into that. It allowed me to go around the world with Ernst and Young and Capgemini. I set up a business with some friends, or I was fortunate to be the employee number 3, I think, in a business started by some friends in Boston. I went there. And then I ended up along the way with Carolyn, my partner, being back in London, having a child, and then going where to from here. And we decided to come to Australia. And a dear friend of mine, Kenneth Roberts, and his friend Lawrence Goldstone were just in the midst of starting a business called The Difference. And so they knew that I was coming out. They knew that I'd done similar stuff in the States. And we started a strategy, collaborative design, boutique kind of business called The Difference. And then sold that to PwC, expanded it globally, and then that's where I am today. But I've always been really interested in the art of design and good design. I like it from any kind of product, whether it's kind of services, looking at physical items, which I like. Just that's so beautiful. How did they think about that? And so I've always been interested in that. And probably from a work standpoint, really interested in the thinking about how people think, basically. So thinking about the kind of things that you need to think about before you actually think.
Where
Yeah.
did you think all those curiosity come from? Like all the interesting about the product, all the interesting about service, all the interesting about the people. Is there anything like in your life kind of inspire you specifically around that?
I think there's been inspiration on the way. I mean, I've worked with some incredible people along the way. I'm always curious, and that's not like, it sounds quite wanky sometimes, but I always find people really interesting, period, right? So I'm always getting things from people. My brain, my brain is the same as yours probably. I just basically bounce off walls. Like I've always got little projects in my mind going on. So I'm always trying to connect things. Um,
Mm.
and I think that for me, as I said, my partner Carolyn's a big influence on me. She's an artist. She understands aesthetic beauty, or I try and understand aesthetic beauty through her eyes and the process of creation. And that has allowed me a bit more to actually appreciate things. But I just love that. I remember going to the Tate Modern again, probably in the 90s, maybe early 2000s, really feeling like the first time ever I saw this one piece of art. It might be a Bridget Riley piece, but it really drew me. Like, I know it made me feel emotional. In the same way as sometimes going to a church. I'm not religious, right? But I can go to a church and I can feel emotional.
because of the
So the
arts.
idea that design and art and space and how people put things together can create amazing emotions for people. And then when you see things which are lazy and sloppy, I'm just like, God, why'd you do it like that? You're just like, that's terrible.
And I guess it's hard to imagine without actually experiencing some of the events that get put together in places and like the difference. It really is, for a lot of people who've never experienced it and experienced for the first time, quite a eye-opening way that you can work in a different way as well.
But what's kind of interesting in my journey, so it was very event driven, and then probably more in the last probably, I don't know, 15 years has become less about like the moment and more about actually how do we string together multiple experiences to create change. Collaborative design's kind of part of the recipe, but now it's probably a lot broader. And certainly at Be Luminous, we started it because we wanted to go even more broader. We want to have more impact with the role of the human in transformative kind of change is huge. And I've always hated the idea of change management. It doesn't make any sense to me. That you spend a lot of time telling people why they need to be doing something in a different way. Can you build intuition within change? Can you build actually change by design so that you're actually doing it's been built with change in mind? All that stuff is just like, I got obsessed. Actually, here's one of my obsessions recently. Probably for 3 years I've been kind of thinking through this, and it was actually an old thought that I brought back somehow. I've always been really interested in design principles as a kind of basis of how you create anything, how you create, patterns, the design principles being the kind of the borderlines of the frameworks and patterns you're going to use. I once had a client, I won't name the client, but it was a really interesting design challenge. This client who I knew for a long time said, "Hey, we're putting in a major ERP system into our organization. We need design principles." And I was like, "Okay, cool. I can probably help you." She said, "But I don't think that's the right question." She said, "What if we created a set of design principles that applied to everything in the organization? So everything that was designed for an employee or for a customer actually had the same set of heuristics built in." And would that mean that when we change things, because we're designing it to the same principles, would people able to adopt and adapt really easily? And she's like, "Hey, I think this is what Apple do. This is how they do their products." And, a lot of modern product design is based off that idea of using the same, obviously, kind of design system and actually applying it through. And people get really used to it. But it was such a good question to go, could we actually create a whole company where everything was designed with the same design system? So when I went into my HR system, or when I had to do, when I onboarded someone, intrinsically it was always the same. It always kind of gave me the same clues. I knew how it would work.
Well, to be honest, we talk a lot around all your passion in the design part and all your, I guess, I understand a lot about where your personal journey from. What about the business part? I'm really curious about what's your kind of a business philosophy. What drew you into because you were talking about you were not initially into the commercial part, but you do run quite a few very successful business, including the Be Luminous. Like, what's your kind of business philosophy?
I don't know if I have a single philosophy, but it's probably worth saying. Like, so I've effectively been in business with some of the same people for almost 20 years, right? I've literally been working with a similar group, and so I kind of go back quite a long time with a lot of people, and one of those is actually one of the partners in crime in The Difference. Lawrence is also now the co-founder of Be Luminous. So we've been at this for seemingly like it's over like 17, 18 years, right, since we've been doing this as partners.
This is incredible.
Which is super interesting. But I think both of us have the same sense. The one is community. If you do good work, and when I say good work, I mean you're always working at your edge. You're actually pushing yourself and the people you're working with and for to go that one step further, to really find the last 5% of value, to push it push an idea even further than it needs to be, maybe to get more. I think if you do that and you deliver on that, that means you'll be commercially successful, right? People will want to work with you because you are creating things that you didn't imagine, the client didn't imagine, the people around you didn't imagine. You've literally worked that hard to kind of conceive something which is just hopefully amazing for everyone. So number one philosophy is like, you have to be working at your peak. You like to make an organization successful, to make your clients happy, and you're only as successful is the value you create for your clients, and you can never forget that. That's the only people that make you relevant. Nothing else is a sign of relevance apart from the value you create for some people who pay you money, right? So that's one of the philosophies, is like that kind of like pushing and really striving for excellence. We believe in the people we work with are an ecosystem. So all the companies that we've ever made always have a core team, but also a larger ecosystem of people who we think of as our community as equals, right? They just have a different way that they transact in the business with us, but actually they bring something really amazing to it. So making and creating community, learning as a community. So really creating inspiration to push your learning and bring you stuff, like making that almost not a requirement, but just the idea that like we're all geeking out together. We're all on that journey, and we're all trying to get a system of work that's better than the one before. So we're always striving, which is number two. Number three is like making sure you're always growing. And that's like individually growing. Teams are growing together and getting better together, but actually you're growing the business, because nothing like creates the conditions for people to thrive and be excited and go bigger than actually the fact that you're growing. It's really hard when you get to a period where sometimes it goes a bit more flat and it just becomes a bit more crap. And the fourth is just fun. Every business I've had like humor, fun, just having fun. Like I've had so much fun in the work that I've done. I just think you should have your best life like at work as well as at home. I feel as a leader, as a business owner, it's incumbent on me and Lawrence and the other partners and all the people we work with to create an environment where people can have fun and really enjoy themselves, because that's when people do their best work.
Love it. No, that feels really inspiring. Well, that kind of explains, because both me and Kiet had the opportunity to work with yourself, and the difference, we always feel like this is the philosophy and the principle really come to life for all of us as well. So I do have a question. You have run business for a long time. You probably have a lot of returning customer. Do you still remember, either for the difference or for the Be Luminous, how did you actually land your first customers?
It's a great question, right? I remember the first customer that we landed with the difference before we sold it. So this is 2007, and it was Optus as they're moving to Macquarie Park. We helped create effectively a design capability within their campus that was a kind of like a managed service that really helped them. Like, as a complex organization, telcos are really, really complicated and complex. It allowed them to actually design with pace and design with kind of system in mind. And that process was quite a long process. We're lucky one of the partners, Kenneth, was very close to the client and had done a bunch of work previously with them, and they got me in. Now, I would say I never won a client in some ways in Australia. I've just started there, and then I've worked with some really cool people who then go somewhere else, and then I've worked with them, and so you kind of and it's hard, right, to find that first client and to kind of create that moment. But this is why the philosophy of doing great work and really being at your edge is really important, because if you and someone else can create conditions where you're super vulnerable, because you have to be vulnerable to push yourself to the last 5%, right? And because that's where you're literally going into a space of ambiguity. But if you can have that shared vulnerability and belief that you can actually come up with something better together, when that work is done, it's like the most amazing thing. And honestly, those clients, I'm working with clients in Be Luminous that I started working with 2010. I've been working with them ever since, right?
Oh my
And we just
God.
in probably 4 or 5 different businesses, I've worked with them. And so, and then I think Australia's especially Melbourne, it's not a slight on anywhere else, but I find Melbourne to be a market where people have work and opportunities, often through advocacy.
Yeah.
So people will advocate for you, say, hey, you got to meet Kiet, you got to meet Charlotte, they're awesome. Believe me, trust them, they're going to get the job done. And people actually buy work that way. So again, like if you do good stuff, good things happen, and I really believe in that, and I love that as an efficacy because it just keeps you on the edge, right? If you say you can do a job and you could build a product, you could kind of design a new organization or a new go-to-market strategy, but that's not the hard bit. Doing that amazingly is the hard bit. And so I look back once and said, look at all my clients, where's my pipeline come from now? And I kind of worked out that there was a certain amount of clients, and I was like, oh, why didn't they come back? Because the others have. And you go, actually, I did the job. We did a great job, but we probably didn't actually get to that vulnerable space with them.
Mm.
We didn't do something which we didn't imagine we could do. So we just delivered what they wanted. But pushing further, surprise and delight. And that's I do it in as a consultant, gun business effectively, but you can do that in every product, every context, right? It's that moment where, talking about change or updates, sometimes the app's update and you're like, it's shit. And sometimes the app's update and you're like, oh, far out, that's cool. That's what I really wanted to do. And you just feel great, right? And where like this whole AI stuff, I'm a bit old now, but I've loved it because I had an operation recently and I said, you can't work. And so I got really angry and I started to try and learn how to use broad code and stuff. And it blew my mind because what blew my mind was that actually the pattern of learning, which I've read in other places about this stuff, is that you explore something new, and by exploring something new, you think of more possibilities of new. So you just kind of you create more and more possibility, and then you can actually just create this it can create uber ugly and largely kind of useless things which do so many things. But you can also, how's the best way to learn? Play. You
Yeah.
play. It's just the ultimate of tooling where it's so easy for anyone just to get on and just play around and just learn a bunch of stuff and have a bunch of fuck ups and then just, hopefully you still got enough tokens to finish your night and get it right.
And the feeling of creating something is just
Yeah,
amazing
it's amazing,
as well.
right?
Because since we become adult, I think that's probably what almost like a fuel for all the product people as well. It just since we become when we're younger, when we don't care about the consequences, we just make a bunch of stuff on the side using anything near us. But then when we're growing up, we become less and less kind of willing to take the risk to put something together, put something imperfect out there. I almost feel like AI in a way they bring that kind of a play culture and let's
Totally.
just put something and put it out there kind of culture out a little bit for the adults. So for me, a lot of them is almost like emotion liberating to bring us back.
So is it Slop is the journey to being great, right? Without the Slop, you don't get the rest of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's same adage. Like it's kind of like it's the process that you need to understand. Like this, and that's part of the Slop, right? The creative process is like messy, and by definition, it has that kind of iterative nature. It has unpredictability built in everywhere, and you have to be okay with that. There has to be this observation of the how more that I think we get obsessed by the what. And the problem with learning is, you work with clients or you do your own work. That works. You don't often say, why did it work? So why is it? Why did it work? Right? What was it about the process I did that made that work? Or what was it? We often do it when things fail, and we don't really do it that well because we're full of shame and things like that. But we often say, oh, let's do a retro on it. But we don't spend enough time really like going, what is it I'm doing that actually makes this successful? Which part of it is the magic? Because if you don't know that, you're no nearer being successful next time than you were the person who failed, because you have no idea why it succeeded.
Be Luminous, you could call it the fourth time round or third time round as a business. Was there anything that surprised you as you're kind of setting that up?
There's probably two surprises. I've been 14 years in PwC in a variety of different roles. And so that's a long time in anyone's career, right? And although I'd say I'm not necessarily conformist, like, so I wasn't necessarily like the quintessential PwC partner or person, I came out and thought, well, I can get my kind of cool, creative kind of vibe back on really quickly. And I really struggled. I really struggled with like, there's just every day there's a million things to do. And my to-do list isn't a to-do list. It's just like, it's like a big kind of web of stuff, which I hope that I haven't fucked up on.
Mm.
So that bit surprised me again, that how quickly, if you take away a bunch of structure and then you come back into it, how quickly you start to realize, like, I've got all this stuff to do, but then how absolutely energizing it is. We worked really hard, and we still are working really hard to kind of grow and as individuals and as a collective for Be Luminous. But it's so joyous. Yeah, most of the time it's absolutely joyous. And there's sometimes where you kind of finish a call at 11 o'clock, you're like, whoa, what am I doing? Actually, I'm kind of like really enjoying it, and enjoying the slop, right?
Mm.
What happens in big companies generally is they hate slop and
Mm.
they want it to be perfect. So they design the slop out and they just lose all creativity. And the slop is I'm really enjoying the sloppiness of it and being okay sometimes to just go, yeah, cool.
How did you transition yourself into the mindset to be able to accepting slop? Because I think before, from what I know you are quite organized person. Even you have a lot of idea and thoughts, and then from a very structured environment, suddenly going to this web of tasks environment. Actually, how did you manage in that transition, and how do you only feel the excitement instead of stress, or do you feel stress?
I get stressed. So I do get stressed. I mean, my biggest stress, and this is to anyone who's doing this, is that there's a bit in growth which it's a big, not to try and stretch the 5% or the 15% adage, but if you're trying to grow a business, you've got to be uncomfortable. You've got to make that next hire where you're like, should I, or maybe there's dark
Mm.
clouds coming, maybe I shouldn't. But like, if you don't, you basically go into kind of stagnation, and like, it just is really hard to. It's hard to once you start to slow your growth, it's really hard to pick it back up. It's really like so much more energy to go again and pick that back.
Mm.
But then at the same time, you know, I love all the people I work with. So we all know each other's families. We all hang out. We intrinsically are part of the same community. So I can like wake at night and go, oh my God, did I take a risk for everybody? Because the person, if we're hiring someone new or taking on a new piece of work, there's a bit of it which is
Mm.
like, it's, X people's lives on the line, right? And that weighs on me sometimes.
Okay.
But going back to the sloppy stuff, right, is that because the sloppy stuff is important, that
Mm.
the messiness of creation is, without messiness or sloppiness, there is no creative process, right? If anyone tells you there is, it's not. It's just a process. That's all it is. It's just a highly predictable process, and great, it works. But if you
Love it.
creativity is actually the unexpected. It's not creativity. Creativity is not about predictability. That's just making something. That's craft. That's making
Mm.
something, in the same way. And creativity is like, what it did, it's experimentation. So that bit has been, that's where I draw my energy. The bit which is hard is the other side of that, which is how do we create enough structure that we're not just having a load of fun and we're not actually growing, because we're just
Mm.
experimenting and doing stuff. So that kind of discipline of creating enough discipline, enough guide rails, but also sometimes going, I don't need to know the answer. I just have to believe that like this process that we're in will create something that's going to be useful.
Okay, I have a questions about this creativity part. Have you worked with any very what's key as words, the cold-hearted economists? Is that what you say? So like some of the
God,
clients
economists.
that doesn't really understanding the business value behind the creativity. They kind of engaging you and your organization and trying to get things done. Have you ever in that situation, and how would you turn them around into understanding the value behind creativity?
Mm, mm. It's just a good question, right? Like, so I'm going to answer this in a way that hopefully you may have expected, but there's two parts to it. Yes, 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 yes. I've met lots of people who think differently to me, and are probably more engineer based or structure based. It sometimes is great because from the tension of two models, something new, so it goes back to creativity, right? Tension of two different philosophies together can sometimes spawn something all more interesting or more dynamic. But again, you have to both be willing to go there. Or it can be just an absolute disaster and you just spend all your time just thinking they're wrong. Or why do they think like that? Or so it's really difficult. I think you have to pick. You have to be really conscious of sometimes the ingredients don't work together, and that's okay. It's not bad people. It's not that you're a good person, they're a bad person, or they're really smart and you're not smart. It just doesn't happen. And actually, I try to be selective. A client once said to me, and a good friend of mine said, "How many pieces of work have you said no to recently?" I said, "That should be your KPI." Because if the answer is none, then by definition, you're not doing your best work because you know some of those things they're asking for, or you know some of those people that you're having to work with or working with, like it just, you're not going to do great stuff with.
You can't achieve your first principle to go to the
No.
vulnerable places.
You need to, if you want to go to wonderful places, you've got to stack the cards for that.
Yeah.
I love that theme because reflecting back on the systems thinking nerding piece out, right? I don't know if you've heard of there's a model called Kiet,
A little bit.
Yeah.
and they're the type of work that spawns a lot of creativity tends to be in the chaos space, right? Because in a chaotic kind of domain, you're throwing mud at the wall to see what sticks. Because if it doesn't work, you're just going to have to stop doing it, right? And that tension between the engineering mindset and there are domains and spaces and times where that is what you need to do to get the incremental improvements that you need, right? But
100%.
in a lot of the work that in collaboration design, it's chaotic. It's very human. It's you need fast feedback loops. It's not that either one is wrong. And to your point, maybe in some circumstances, the right combination is actually where you really get new novel ideas and innovation, right?
Great, but I love that. I
Yeah.
mean, that was one of that model. Kneffen was when I first read it, it was like how do you say that? And now
Yes.
it's like
Have
it
a
just
weird
doesn't
way to
read.
spell it too.
There's a really weird, like saying Welsh, a Welsh name, and a Welsh term, I believe. But that was a really I thought it was a great piece of work. Was it Snowden or whatever his name, IBM?
Yeah.
Like this, it's really good work. It's just it really helps understand. Yeah, it gets that sometimes I've always intrinsically knew before that the process that we tend to use back in the day, especially for the complex kind of problem solving, if you applied it to something simple, it's really interesting, right? So you'd apply that process to something incredibly complex. Like I remember doing a session on trying to redesign the capital markets to install trust. Like, I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, I spent like 6 months trying to understand what even it was before we even went there. Massively complex, but the process actually creates an organizing structure which takes that complexity and allows you to play with it, allows people to kind of start to design in it. Equally, if you put a really simple thing like hey, I want to just redesign how my retail shops are going to work, or it will basically make it so complex. It will take a simple idea and go, because it kind of works with the requisite level of complexity. And so it'll either suck in or push out. And so you can kind of make something that should be done in the Kneffen model as best practice, kind of tick, tick, tick. And it will go, no, I'm trying to solve a complex thing. So it's like, bang,
I feel like
that,
AI is pushing everyone outside of this best practice kind of a
yeah,
complex domain at the moment. That's where I see where the kind of a lot of organization in stuck moving into chaotic space. That's when the creativity coming out.
I mean, it is interesting. I think of this in organizations a bit, and we're doing quite a lot of work in this space where we're working really with Dom coming on board from Atlassian. Part of what we're working with is like this system of work idea. And when you're kind of thinking about AI, a lot of people are just buying a bunch of licenses and going, "Hey, go for it, guys!"
Yes.
And I'm terrified by that idea. I'm like, that's just not a good idea. You just end up with endless amounts of effectively risk within your business, a load of inefficiency because actually it's not a system view, you're not really designing systemically. And yet, I think actually if you start to go, what should be the system of work? How should work get done? And then how might you change the process? How might you use AI within the process? What role is the human in creating excellence in the process? Then you come up with a really different work system. that actually creates results. It's by design, and it has control. It has measure within it. Whereas I don't know. I remember once talking to someone who was a client, which I won't mention, and they just rolled out Power BI. And they trained everyone. They did awesome. They trained everyone in Power BI. And they said, guys, just, all the knowledge workers had it. So they were all kind of like, we're doing our job. And then, within like a year or so, they tried centers of, kind of communities of practice and centers of excellence to try and go, hey, what are you doing, Kiet? Oh, that's cool. Can I borrow yours? But basically, it just had this huge proliferation of dashboards that cost a fortune and had significant risk in this organization. It had no controls in there. And you just go, oh, that's great. But actually, it's terrifying and terrible. And there was,
And had access
there
to
was
everything.
dashboards for everything. And there's 4 dashboards for everything. Because, someone else has dreamt up another one. And that's my worry with the AI within a corporate domain. Is it just like, unless you've got a real strategy for creating the right conditions and guide rails, you're going to cause chaos. And the best use case is going to be like footy tipping or something like that.
Well, I feel like we're talking so many positive things. I don't know if you feel comfortable to share any of these hard things happening throughout your entrepreneur journey, especially you were mentioned about you have been working with people basically you really like and you really trust as well for such a long time. Has there ever been a moment, either a near-death moment or a kind of scare moment that you are going to disappoint them and all the trust they're putting in you along this journey?
It's a couple, right? So there's a couple of, yes, I have, is the answer. I think I've had near death times where it wasn't near death, but I thought it was near death. I'm basically got large amounts of anxiety kind of times, and I'll be like, so I think it's worse than it really is.
Mm.
I mean, I've basically been in small companies that I've been a part of leading through a couple of financial crises. I was basically working in a consortium with Lehman's when they went bust. That was near death.
Oh
Wow.
my
That's something.
God.
That's a claim to fame in itself.
So that's it's a whole different story. But I guess there's probably a couple of things that have been really like hard lessons, I guess. On a very personal level, like learning to be a better leader. Like I think that because I'm so over-indexed in some way in just having fun and like hanging out and playing and learning and stuff. A large part of my early leadership days, I was really unconscious of how people experienced me.
Mhm.
And as a consequence of being so familiar sometimes, it could feel that I knew people in different ways and I'd know how to play with them in different ways. But actually, how other people experienced that was like that I was inconsistent because they would see me being different to different things. And so I found it really, really difficult personally to kind of work out how to remain integral to myself and how I want to be as me and like how I am.
Mm.
Like I don't want to kind of be a robot, but actually also then really understand what others needed from me. And those two things are sometimes in opposition. And I still work on it today. I still have not, it will be an endless journey for me for sure, like trying to get that. And then probably within that same thing, the experience, the darker experience has been, how do you, and this is going to sound terrible, right? But I have this like when Kenneth, Lawrence and I and Naomi were starting a difference, there was times where like some people didn't work out.
Mm.
And I have this mantra, which I would have said at the start, but one of my mantras is sack 'em all back 'em. So I think the biggest problem in a business is that, and especially in a small business where you don't have the ability to have much failure in it, like you don't have the ability for a part of that business not to be working fully, is many people like will go, what, X over there, it's not really working, is it? They're not quite there. And for me, the lesson we learned was like, you're either going to have to go, they're not going to ever make it, and you have to part ways, or
Mm.
you have to back them and take personal accountability for their success. But you can't leave them in the middle. So and so for me, it's always been that importance of going, because you want it to, sometimes it's hard. We all hate that stuff because it's the stuff which is like kind of very, emotive and the stuff you're going to do in business is the human to human stuff, right?
Mm.
Um, that balance between your job as a founder is, and for those who've chosen because they've chosen to be a part of that, but they've made choices, but you've also made commitments with them. Your job is to actually create the conditions that everyone succeeds to the max. And if there's one weak link that's meaning it's pulling everyone down, that's your job. That is no one else's job than your job. And you've just got to either double down and create, work out how you can help that individual up, or you've got to go as quickly as you can and just help that person find a better place for them. And that's really tough, right? Because sometimes it's, but there is nothing worse or more insidious in a business, in my mind, than a business that walks past poor performance, because that poor performance basically just starts to rot everyone. Yeah, as soon as it becomes accepted, it's So I find those are near death, because like you've got to be willing to go into the hard conversation. You've got to be willing to kind of lean in, and you've got to be really conscious of your like responsibility, which is either to your shareholders, to your fellow shareholders, but to everyone in that business, to actually carry on the mission and the ambition and the growth, and make sure that you're setting everyone up for that success.
Yeah, I truly believe the old saying, how someone does something is how they do everything.
Yeah.
When you play games with people, competitive games, you can start to see someone's real personality. And I love the consistency of how you talk about the people who you've worked with in the past. That's the same approach you take with your customers, right? It's all or nothing. Where you've kind of left it in the middle is kind of where you said, oh, we probably could have gone that extra mile to get from good to great, essentially, right? In terms of the topic of the people you work with, would you be comfortable sharing with our audience the dynamics with yourself and your founding partners today?
Yeah, and look, I probably, I can talk equally to kind of my experience of maybe Lawrence and Kenneth when we started The Difference,
Yeah.
and Timothy and Maureen as part of the founding kind of partner groups in Be Luminous. But certainly for the longevity of myself and Lawrence, it's a miracle that we still like each other now.
You
He's
even have a
kind
matching pajamas.
we have matching pajamas, yeah.
Is that what it is? I remember.
Okay.
Actually, I should have said this. I never said this. So when we started The Difference, so yeah, I'm a tenured male of 50 odd years, and now Lawrence is 50 as well. When we started Be Luminous, we went from staying in the Crown Hotel in our previous employees to staying at each other's houses, and it was wonderful. So when he's in, actually last night that bed's slightly unkept behind there because that's where Lawrence slept last night. But it's kind of cool. It's so going to why that's relevant to the question, I guess, is that with Lawrence and I and Kenneth, when were at the start with The Difference, we're all in. So going back to the all in, we're all in. There's an intensity to growing a business. I'm busy at the moment. Lawrence is busy. Actually, the reason really why he stayed here was actually like, hey, we can get an extra we can go out, we can have something to eat. We'll be talking through to about 10 o'clock. It just gives us extra time and to be together and just be able to start have a deliberatively long conversation about how we're going with the business. Where do we need to be? What's working, what's not. And it's not like a business meeting. It's just like hanging out, talking.
Hmm.
So
What was that?
most of the time, there's absolute respect between all the founders that I've ever worked with, pretty much, that we've all basically respected and cared for each other in that way. I think the magic sauce is also knowing to there's things that Lawrence will do that I wouldn't do. And I wouldn't think of it. And maybe don't actually think it's necessarily the thing that we should do. But at some point you trust each other so impeccably that you go for it, right? I don't know what's going to happen. I can't see what you can see. And that trust is absolutely mutual, right? And it has to be. So, you really have to kind of give people space to do things that you can't see and not be a control freak. And that's the bit that will kill you. But I think, the longevity part, the ability to be in each other's lives in that meaningful way. Yeah, you're best mates in the end of the day. I'm still, incredibly, one of my best mates is Kenneth. Timothy I've known since 2008, and she's now, one of our founders, one of our partners, right? She's with us, right? So these are people that I've, been to their kids' birth, or been there when they've been baptized, or been to their wedding. Now, funny, when I first met Lawrence, I don't think we were really gelled that well. We're very different characters.
Very different personalities.
Yeah.
But that's like part of the magic, is that actually it just kind of works, right? The weirdness works in that. And I think you have to respect people. You have to be a founder with other founders, or be a partner with other partners. You have to basically ultimately trust them, respect them, and believe that they are capable of doing things that you can't imagine as well.
Mm,
So the principles that you mentioned earlier, right, and um, which evolved to the value of how you
Mhm.
do business, was that very explicit earlier on, or was it kind of something that was implicit and then just evolved and formalized as you guys worked together?
Yeah, it's evolved and been formalized, but values in some ways, explicit things that we in the businesses that we've been in have created with others have always been a really important thing for us culturally.
mm,
Reason why, yeah, we created Be Luminous was not necessarily a frustration, just but to create a different model. Most of the work we do, and we are a team of 12 full-time people, probably an ecosystem of about 40. But we also partner with big companies to do the work. So we'll orchestrate work across with big companies. And we're really proud of saying to clients, we will help you solve this problem by working with the best people. And that's not us for certain things. We are, yeah, there's some things that we will not be very good at. And historically, we'd have tried to build it. But now we're like, actually, our value proposition is really in striving to be excellent. There's a generosity, which means actually we want to work with others and bring them in.
mm,
And and what occurred to me today, which I hadn't thought about, is because sometimes you think, oh, we bought this person or that person or this company in, and you know, 4 times, and they made a mozza, and but they've been great, but that's cool. Yeah, have they given us anything? Do they bring us into the conversations? And the thing that dawned on me was it doesn't matter, because that's kind of an emotive or emotional idea. For us, it's actually we're just trying to solve a client problem, and we can't solve it unless we have the best data engineers in the business, and we have the best designers in the business coming to work with us. That's our value proposition. So that's all about us. Other people think differently, and they work in a different way. But we're like, we want to make sure we bring the best, and that's the only way you're going to get the magic, by bringing like just superstars.
I
And I really
love
believe
it.
that we get to work with superstars, right? I get to work with my heroes.
Yeah, that's very, very inspiring. So what, like in the 5 years time, everything is go on exactly like how you imagine. You work with the best people, you work with the best clients. What exactly is a good success or visions in your mind for Be Luminous?
I have maybe a couple. And there's ones which is like, um, I feel incredibly lucky in my life, right? So, I did. I didn't do particularly well in education. I did get a degree, but that's kind of, you know, lucky, I reckon, at best.
It's quite a common trait
Yeah,
for
Successful
similar to
entrepreneur.
yourself, like I
yeah,
don't know of people with ADHD. I think traditional education
yeah,
structures don't reward your brain cycle.
yeah. I had a lot of good fun as well. So it's also
Yeah.
pretty. Pretty much in the gut. But along my way, I've had lots of people who inspired me, helped me, I've learned from, and I feel really lucky. I've been in the right place in the right time at different things. So I just feel really that luck's been on my way. But also sometimes I've gone, it's lucky, but sometimes people have looked after me. And for me, part of what we did at the difference, and the difference did for me, was create the context for growth for myself and others. But for Be Luminous, I want to create the next generation of people who are going to be able to kind of really drive, um, amazing experiences for people, create amazing value for organizations through their people and through their systems of work, and actually take the work further than I can ever imagine. And success would be those people, the people, Noah, he joined us, as his first
Mm,
job after uni. He's with us, right? 10 years time or 5 years time for Noah running a massive piece of business and like being seen as a leader in what he does. That absolutely, without a doubt is for me, that singular success of others and feeling as though I've given back, because I feel as though I've been rewarded in the same way by things like that. So I've created conditions of a growth company, or someone's created conditions where I can do that. I think that's success at a very individual level for me. That's what I care about massively. Success for Be Luminous is probably in a more tangible way, is that we get to change the game. We get to change the game on how this kind of work's delivered, how people receive it, and the value it creates. And that a bit of that makes better businesses, and that we actually, are kind of known for doing that. If we can get there and be known consistently, be able to do, really big work that actually does the work the right way. And I say this because work done right means that kind of people lift and they go bigger and they feel better, right? And they do more. Work done wrong crushes people. I think as a human being, need to, where you have the opportunity, and I know there's a bit of privilege in this, right? And luck again, but it's your job to be absolutely fulfilled by the work that you do, because then you're going to be a better human in every aspect of your life, right? You're going to go home at night, you're going to feel, and like that ability to do good work and to allow people to experience that when they're all in and they feel good and they're connected and they feel really part of something. If we can create that as not the exception but the rule, that the norm is actually that's how organizations work, and that is in tandem with like technology and other things, then we've succeeded, because that's what's needed for all of us, right? We all deserve to actually do our best, to be at our best and to do our best work.
So beautiful. That's so beautiful.
If any of our audience is listening and wanting to start their own venture, what is the one thing they should do or try in the next 30 days to kind of set them up for success? Would you be able to give them some advice?
The reason why it's hard, and it's slightly hard to answer, is that I think starting a venture it's not for the faint-hearted, right? You've got to be okay with it not working. You've got to be okay with a bunch of stuff that you can't control happening. It's like in the product land, I've worked with enough product companies or young, like, kind of startups to go, it only takes, oh no, did you see the Google release? Oh no, okay. Yeah, like, because you've solved something and then, one of the hyperscalers accidentally put it in the next release that something actually has an equivalence to it. And you just go, wow, yeah. You don't have to look at the last year's share price to understand how that's working, right? That you can just,
Mm.
your idea can be just like subsumed with something. But what I really believe in, if you really want it to be, you're thinking next 30 days, I'm really getting my head around what it's going to take to kind of, dive in and go for it, is be obsessed with the customer. I think so many people get obsessed with their products, not because originally they're solving a problem, right? But at some point they get obsessed with the products and they forget the problem they're solving. And just like, when I say obsessed, I mean super geekily obsessed. Like, if you're thinking about building an app and it solves a problem, go and fucking work out what happens today and what customers experience today. Really deeply understand it. And don't look at it as a set of like friction points in a process. Look at the app's needs that's really starting it. I work with a great person called Gus Belbontin, ex-MD of Lonely Planet. He's a really cool guy, amazing keynote speaker. And he has great stories about Lonely Planet. And effectively, in a nutshell, the end part, which I always take from that story, is that at some point you've created a solution to a problem for a client or customer, and we build travel books, and you think that's what they need. So you think they need travel books. So you just make the travel book better and better and better. But what you forgot was actually, if you really observe what was going on, and this is how they came unstuck with kind of TripAdvisor, just a really crappy website at the time, was actually customers didn't want to book; they just wanted to work out how to plan their holidays. But at some point, you just believe your product and your idea so much, and you self-evidence it, and you find lots of reasons to kind of be true for it to be true. But you've got to almost force yourself to always think deeply about what's actually the core need that I'm actually solving for the customer. That's not necessarily just the problem, because the problem can go away. Someone else can take that away in a different way. What's the core need? What's the real thing that I'm doing that I could actually create? So if you're starting out, that's what you should do, because then you can be sure the idea that you've got is actually a really good idea.
Oh my God, I love it. I feel like this is like should be the clips for playing in every single kind of product pulse podcast at the beginning of it, because I feel like it's not only apply for the people who starting out, it apply for a lot of organization when they're making decision, because there's so many organization they have this product running for a long time, and then they're starting to obsess about the solution, the product itself, and start losing track about what's actually happening with the market and with the customers, the original kind of problem they're trying to solve in the first place.
Actually another person that I just adore, by the way, and I'm pretty sure most of your listeners might know of them. But Dieter Rams, so he was the designer for Braun. Dieter Rams is like probably one of the most iconic like product designers ever known. He arguably is it Jonathan Ive? Johnny
Apple's
Ive.
big influence.
He's
Yes.
his guru.
Huge.
So he influenced everything to do with Apple products. But he's got a bunch of design heuristics that he designs too. But basically, the one which I think is really important for this is elegance is the minimalist amount of stuff you need to do to solve the problem, not the maximalist. So you look at his products and you look at Apple products, they don't try and make too many steps to things. It's just trying to make the few. And you look at a beautiful product, it's not full of stuff. It's just got a few beautiful things. It's easy, it's intuitive. And that's what the product needs to be. You've got to kind of always, because again, making products, especially digitally, there's a lot of like, let's just add a bit more. Let's just add a bit more. Let's add a bit. Yeah. And at some point, you're like, fuck, I can't find anything anymore. And what's all this shit in here anyway? Whereas actually just go, what can I take away? What can I take away? What's the essence of the value that I'm creating? How do I kind of manifest that in the most, kind of smallest way? Another, it's the study by Picasso he did a study, I think 14 pictures of a bull. And it's basically you can see the sequence, it's online, but it will start where it's kind of rudimentary, then it gets more and more and more detailed. And then it gets less and less and less and less. And he takes everything out. And in the end, he ends up with a line diagram, which looks a lot like what a kid would do. And for him, it was like trying to work out through a creative process, like what is the essence of the ball?
Yes.
So it's the fewest amount of lines that I need to do to create the essence of a ball.
It's the people who don't understand the genius of Picasso. When they look at a Picasso, they're like,
yeah,
scratches. But you don't know that he went through phases and he started off as a very detailed, realistic drawer, artist, and then evolved into what is the essence of what you're trying to actually say.
And I think you can bring that into like Dieter Rams has done it in product. That's his product that actually lives by that, but I don't reference that, and I don't think it's necessarily a reference to his work. But I think it's the same idea of going, how do I strip away all the stuff that's getting in the way of the essence of what this is really meant to do? And if you can create products that do that, you're winners.
It's a really great way to actually finish the conversations for the podcast today. So thank you so much for your time to actually chat with us. I make so many notes about it. I personally feel so inspired and energized by these conversations. So thank you so much.
Personally, I feel very, very honored to have had a chance to work with you. You said your 5-year goal was, seeing people become successful individuals of their own and making their own impacts. I think you don't have to wait 5 years, right? And everyone who's kind of worked with or touched the businesses that you've created in the past have gone on to do bigger and better things. So, and no less credit to yourself as well. So,
well, I appreciate that. I love this conversation. Is awesome. So much fun.
Thank you so much.